This episode is brought to you in part by Hindsight. Hindsight is a new science fiction novel by author Matthew Keegan. Hindsight is a time travel adventure that Tim Truax at the Nerd Room calls a brilliant tapestry of time travel and history that will leave you questioning everything, impossible to put down. Find the links to Hindsight at talkstarwars.co.uk/hindsight and order your copy today. This episode is also brought to you by the Talk Star Wars Patreon community. If you'd like to support what we do now and help us expand our programming, head to patreon.com/talkstarwars and become a patron. In return, you'll get an exclusive daily podcast, a monthly newsletter, Facebook Live sessions, priority release podcasts, and monthly prize giveaways and a whole lot more. You'll also get access to our VIP-only Facebook group. This group contains a global community of Star Wars fans that have become dear friends. So head to patreon.com/talkstarwars today and become a TSW patron. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast of talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
And welcome back, Rob, after your week off.
Thank you. I love that. I love that intro, Paul. It was like a radio DJ. And I'm Paul.
Up it up, mate.
Brilliant. Love
rock
it.
Hard.
I love it.
No Stephen. Yeah, speaking of rock hard, no Stephen this week because he has he has an ever so colourful excuse for not turning up this week. That guy,
doesn't he always?
It's more and more outrageous every week.
He's got something throbbing or ringing or something. I can't
something. Yeah. There's a bell involved somewhere. If he does join us later on, I'm sure he will regale us with the details of this latest colourful excuse. Right, let's get into episode 96. We got quite a bit on the show notes this week. As we are always fond of doing, we're going to kick off with some thank yous to people that have joined our little network this week.
Getting bigger, mate.
Yeah, there's quite a lot. There's been some great comments over on YouTube. So before we get there, we want to say thank you to Chris Howell and David Richardson for liking the Facebook page, and thanks to Trick Shots. That's a difficult word. I've only written it, never read it. Thanks to Trick Shots F4, Matt Volpato, Dennis Walsh, and AJ Goodwin Aviation for the subscriptions on YouTube. I wondered if AJ might have been the AJ from Australia that leaves us reviews.
Oh, yeah, could well be.
AJ.
Well, thank you if you are.
I'm sure he'll tell us.
If not, well, hello anyway.
Yeah. All right, we didn't get any reviews this week, but we are picking up lots and lots of comments on our YouTube channel, so I thought we'd go through a few of those. There's a few really interesting ones in here, but we still want your reviews, so if you want to get a shout out on the show and take advantage of the Wrong Burgundy policy, you can do so by leaving us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts. And the Wrong Burgundy policy means that whatever you say in that review, we will read it verbatim. So if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, that's the place to do it. There's only one rule, and that is keep it clean. So let's get to some of our YouTube comments, because YouTube's really picking up some speed. Not just for the subscribers, but the conversations that are going on in there, the comments we're getting from people have been really interesting. And Rob, Paul, you'll notice last week we had a couple of comments from Reverend Felcher.
Yes.
And
we did giggle for a few moments.
Autobahn Kenobi.
Okay, so now I've realised these are conjoined.
They are one and the same thing. So,
yeah, Rob, it's not that funny, Rob.
Yeah, we laughed at this last week. It's so last week, Rob.
Yeah, I know you got over it last week, but some of us weren't here. You know,
we had a few chortles.
We did.
Yeah, I can imagine. It seems only reasonable.
So, Autobahn Kenobi left a message saying, "You all have your moments, but Steve is hilarious."
Even though he wasn't on it last week.
Not necessarily funny, ha-ha.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, funny, ha-ha, or funny, peculiar. He's, you're not wrong, though. He is kind of funny.
Yeah, he's pretty funny.
When he can be bothered to rock up.
I do miss him when he's not here, to be fair.
You meet him in person, he's the dullest piece of paper.
He really is. It's like watching paint.
It's like listening to paint dry.
It's watching paint sit on a shelf waiting to dry.
Yeah.
trying to get out the tin on its own.
Yeah. So to surmise, Steve's a bucket of
Love
paint.
it.
Rob, would you like to read Ryan's comment from last week? This is off of last week's show.
Okay, fair enough. So Ryan writes, great discussion as always, guys. I have to agree with the binary sunset, and let's not forget about the Imperial March. What was I assume it was something about impactful music?
I think it was Luke moments, wasn't it?
It was Luke moments. Katie started this thing last week, Rob, where we do. Okay. She asked us what our favourite moments are for certain characters, and last week was Luke, and we mentioned the binary sunset.
Associate them with. This is musical, right?
This is musical.
Imperial Watch wouldn't be a Luke moment, so.
No, but we'd mentioned the music and how impactful that is in that scene. So I think Ryan was just sort of tipping his hat towards the Imperial March, which of course is up there. If you're going to pick tunes for Star Wars,
alongside that, the moment where Luke, just after he's by the torpedo, he's gone down to shoot, and he goes up and he's like, "Remember, this Force will be with you." That is one of my single most favorite motifs in the entire Star Wars.
That is a lovely piece. Yeah,
that little piece. It's very light violin going da 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 da. And it's in the background, it just hovers.
Yeah.
And it also happens very similar. Anyone that could be bothered to wait until the end credits of the film, the last 30 seconds of the entire Star Wars theme is this beautiful hanging few notes, and it's absolutely glorious.
Yeah.
We're going to have to watch it again soon.
Can I give my Luke moment really quickly?
Yeah, do it. Why not? Yeah. Bonus Luke moment.
The music that's playing with the look of disbelief on his face when Yoda's lifting the X-Wing out of the swamp.
Oh, yeah.
I love that piece.
We did mention that one,
yeah.
Actually.
I can believe it.
That is a great moment, and it's a great insight as well. It's a great lesson for Luke because of the line he has where he says, "I don't believe it." And Yoda,
that's why you failed.
Yoda slaps him down, and he was, "That is
like,
what."
Lol, noob, get God.
Yeah, can you imagine if a millennial made this movie?
I do like it where Yoda does it. He cuts the mustard and he settles it down. He even parks it.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
And he says, "You're impossible." It's like, hang on a minute, the little guy just did everything you expected of him. You're impossible.
That's good. Good stuff. Yeah, thanks, Rob, for throwing in your bonus Luke spot there. We're going to get Katie's because she forgot to tag on to her question last week what her favourite Luke moment is. So we're going to get to that in listener comms. Rob, Paul, did you want to take the highlighted comment, the Autobahn Kenobi second comment?
The highlighted? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Was a treat to hear my comment discussed. Well, this is before we realised Reverend Felcher and Autobahn Kenobi are the same person.
No, I need to point out he'd done. Nice to hear my comment, discussed.
Yeah, he'd made some comments through that week, so I'd been grabbing them through the week and putting them in the show notes.
Were you aware of that?
No, I wasn't. I thought that they were two separate people when I'd put the show notes together last week. But at the start of the week, when I grabbed the first comment and put it in the show notes, he'd obviously realised there's a chance that this might get read out on air. So I'm going to change my username to a cleaner one.
No, don't change that. Don't change that on our accounts at all.
Really. No, do.
Jedi Felcher. Anyway, I'll rewind. So, was a treat to hear my comment discussed. Okay, realising it was a possibility, I went ahead and changed my vulgar username, Reverend Felcher. Sorry, I forgot around a bit too late. Laugh out loud. It was funny as hell to hear it said on the show, though. You guys made some good points. Thanks again. Always welcome. There's nothing we like more than sniggering over silly names.
Yeah, there was quite a lot of childlike sniggering. There's only so much I can do in post. And then we get a comment from Entil as well.
That's new, isn't it? That's not a name I've ever seen before.
No, this is new. He says, just what I need, a long podcast about Star Wars. I chill listening to you guys whilst playing games. So, superb. That's nice. There's some background Star Wars commentary. I'm not going to say
he says playing games.
Quality.
He's probably the quarterback for the Raiders, and he's got it on the speaker in the stadium.
Oh, he just got sacked like nobody's business.
And he's pointing at his earphones. So they just said Felcher.
You could not laugh.
The quarterback gets sacked. Yeah.
Also fired.
The American listeners, yes, I do know all the terminology in the NFL. Yeah. I am a fan. Yeah. Dolphins suck.
I don't even follow football, and I know that.
There's going to be some blowback from that next week.
They're my team. No, they are my team. No, I love them, but this year it's
difficult road to hose.
We're the only fish that drowns. Seriously. Actually, who's the guy that does Toy Box, Mark?
Mark Carey.
Yeah, because we talk on. We've had a few little crossovers.
He's
the NFL on Facebook. We've
talked Dolphins guy as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
I feel like he is.
I said I feel your pain, brother. So.
All right, I want to just finish off the YouTube section by saying thank you to everyone over there for the support and for the constant comments and interaction. It's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying seeing that grow. So thank you, and keep it coming. All right, let's move into listener comms then. So you can send your questions and comments to us via Twitter and Facebook, or you can send us an email, and if you attach an MP3, we'll use that as a voicemail to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com. And this week we've got, we're going to start off with a comment from Joe. This was actually on our Patreon page, but I thought it was worth tucking in because it addresses something that we brought up last week, Paul, when we were discussing one of the recent TV spots that had Poe sort of doing a handbrake turn in his X-Wing.
Right, yeah. Did I comment on that? Obviously, it's got my name.
So.
Yeah. So this is from Joe. He's no slouch, Crouch. This is from the Patreon page, and he says, Paul and his thoughts on the way the X-Wing moves in space. None of the ships fly accurately to how they'd fly in space. They fly like aircraft because they are based on the old World War II film reels of dogfights. It's a case of aesthetics over reality. And this is great. I'm sure that 99% of our listenership will know this already, but Star Wars initially was cut together by George, and it was mostly World War II dogfight footage that he'd found in old war movies. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. Have you ever seen the cut of the movie that plays out like that? You see it in documentaries sometimes. But it's just dogfights of aircraft, and it's frame for frame. It's been replicated by ILM with the models of the X-Wings. Oh. So what Joe's saying, it is a case of aesthetics over reality. But in A New Hope, when they did the effect shots, they did use George's, I'm going to say animatics and put it in obnoxious air quotes because it was just him cutting together war film footage. They replicated that almost identically. It was It's really quite impressive. If you ever do see,
I mean, sorry,
no, carry on, Paul.
I was going to say, I mean, now I'm thinking about it. I've got images of the Falcon regularly does this kind of sideways spin and then thrusts off in a different direction, doesn't it? Almost.
Yeah, there's lots of banking.
At the very least, there's Force Awakens one, isn't there? So there's at least one.
We've seen the Falcon do a similar kind of move, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the
Falcon do moves
chase
that probably shouldn't be able to do.
And it also breaks light speed in atmospheres and manages not to hit the surface, which is very interesting.
Bloody good trick, yeah.
But, if you want... I mean, this is an interesting exercise or a completely not interesting exercise for people to do. If you want to see how things really work in space, go and watch Kubrick's 2001. And then when you wake up after watching that movie, you see all these slow things sort of tediously crawling across it's just not entertaining. So there is no...
that's subjective, isn't it?
No, it's not. And that's a fact. I read it somewhere. It's
one of those subjective facts I've heard.
It's one of those subjective facts. It was in a Christmas cracker. You can put those things to one side. Because you want to convey a certain intention in the film, and if your intention is to convey immediacy, then you have to have these sort of banks and twirls and spins that ships do.
You've still got to have candy, mate, for the eyes. It's
of course, and that
if anyone's ever watched 24-hour NASA channel, it is dull as can be.
Yeah,
seriously. I like it, but you see, when they dock, when they bring provisions up and so on. I've watched it live before. And it is tediously slow and nothing happening and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then, Han putting back on all those levers in the cockpit of the Falcon and it drops down between the two Star Destroyers. That sort of stuff is just first class. And the end of Rogue One. Look at what they do there with that over the top of Scarif when you got the ghost swooping through the frame and things like that. And yeah.
The two Star Destroyers falling out of space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief. I'm glad Steve's not here. He'd brush the dust off of that old joke of his about suspending willies or whatever it is. So yeah, Joe, thank you very much. Don't, because he will do it. In fact, if he does come on tonight, I will use the term suspension of disbelief,
just to see what he does,
and then it will cue it up perfectly.
All right, noted.
Okay, right. Let's move on. Joe, thanks for your comment on Patreon. Gents, Rob, you've not been for a couple of weeks. Why don't you take Katie's question, mate?
Okay. So this is from Katie Stubbs, and Katie writes, "Hey guys, it's funny that you said that my Luke Skywalker question should possibly be the start of something, because that was my exact intention. I'm also doing this for the tumbling saber as well. So my favourite Luke moment is the same as Mark's, when Vader said, 'If you don't come to the dark side, then maybe your sister will.' And then Luke just sees red and viciously attacks his father. The swelling score and Luke savagely hitting Vader again and again till he cuts his arm off is just brilliant. Anyway, on to the next character. What is your favourite Leia moment? For me, it's between her choking Jabba, which just amplifies how strong and independent a woman she is, or Leia meeting Wicket. I just love that whole engagement. And much love, Katie." All right. Thanks for that, Katie.
Yeah, thank you, Katie.
It's a good question, you know.
It is.
I'm going to enjoy this.
Well, I know mine, so.
I know mine as well.
Do you want me to go ahead? Oh, okay. Who's going first?
No, by all means. Leader's choice.
This is some rescue. When you guys came in, you didn't have a plan to get out. Beep, 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 bang. I know where the trash compactor is. Yeah. Sort of thing. But no, she...
What
I think she's
a shame. That is my choice as well, but for slightly different reasons.
Do you want to go first?
No. I should have. But can you give us a reason for that, for choosing that, Paul?
Yeah, it introduced us. I mean, we know this now, but I mean, at that young age, sort of thing, I wasn't used to a young female lead taking care of a situation in such a way, to be honest. I mean, because even when I was young, when I first saw that, I did recognise the fact that the two guys all of a sudden didn't have a clue what to do. And it was awesome that the princess who was supposed to be being rescued was actually the rescuer. And it was great fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my choice as well. And I've brought this up before, so I won't labour the point too much, but there's a moment in there where Leia or Carrie makes a decision in that scene to sort of duck behind Mark. Like Leia takes shelter behind Luke on that gantry amidst all that blaster fire, and she kind of cowers behind him just for a second and reverts to type of the damsel in distress. And then you see her sort of snap, and movie history changes forever when she says no, and she grabs the blaster and she works her way across the corridor, laying down some cover fire, then blows the hole in the thing. And it's really her sort of getting a measure of the boys. They've come to rescue me. Are they really capable of doing this? And when she realises that isn't the case, she takes control. And I love that because it's just that split second where she reverts to type, and then they're back off to the races. And I really don't think there's a Leia moment that can top that, to be fair. But Rob, give it a try.
All right. So mine is from Jedi, and it's the reversal of the "I love you, I know" from Empire.
Yeah.
Because it goes from. It's hard to explain what it is. It kind of switches, but. It's just another one of those examples of her being a strong, dependable character, because in a situation where it looks like all is lost, she has an ace up her sleeve.
Yeah,
I like that one a lot.
That is good. You could also, I think we did honourable mentions last week. I think the Hutt Slayer thing, of course, it's got to be up there.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But I also like her as Boosh the Bounty Hunter.
Okay,
with the thermal detonator and all that stuff.
Successfully blends into a bounty hunter's persona, so she obviously she sort of sinks right into the role, doesn't she?
And she's so tiny as well, but she still manages to come off as being menacing.
Well, when you've got a thermal detonator in your hand,
you can do that.
Yeah, that's doing a lot of the intimidating.
You've got a small advantage.
Just helps a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any honourable mentions, chaps?
It's one of those annoying moments where my brain's emptied. As I read the question out, my brain goes, "Nope, you're not allowed any of your memory."
Actually, I mean, you think of the entire, for want of a better word, parade with Boba Fett taking Han all the way down to his ship. The whole moment on Bespin, it's as soon as they take control, the whole thing with, oh yeah, we trust you. That's quite fun, and she's she's a bit kick-ass in that.
She also stops Lando from dying, so it's that.
Yep.
Because otherwise, Chewie would have probably just snapped him in half.
She doesn't rush.
No, she doesn't. She obviously, she takes her time over it, but at the same time, she does stop Lando from dying and gives him a chance. Yeah, it gives him a chance. Gives him a chance to catch up to him.
There's there's also that gorgeous moment when they're fleeing the Cloud City and she senses Luke, and there's that moment where she's caught off guard by this. She and the audience are realizing this new power that she's had. Yeah, and she's like, "Take us back into the fray, back into the fray to try and save her brother." It's amazing. There's tons of wonderful Leia stuff, tons of it. Still got a whole movie of it yet, so we may have to revisit the question.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Right. We got. Thank you, Katie. I look forward to next week.
Can you do these every week for like 12, 14 weeks? This is awesome.
I think she's pretty much keen on doing that. So who knows where it'll go after that.
Can you do your favourite Lobot moment next week, please?
Mine would be in a comic book, but that has spoilers. All right, so we got this question from Paul Corey this week. He says, "Hey everyone. So we all know that in times of need, the Jedi have been talked to by old Jedi that have been lost. Luke on his trench run and Anakin as he was about to slaughter the Sand People. What are your thoughts on this happening to Kylo Ren / Ben Solo as he is about to pull the trigger on his mam aboard the ship? Maybe Anakin tells him not to, tells him to stop. I think it would be pretty cool callback. And it would further trouble an already struggling Ben Solo. It'd be great to hear your thoughts. Oh, and sorry about the mum thing. I'm Northern. Ha. So, yeah.
That'd be Ma, wouldn't it?
What are the chances of somebody reaching a Force ghost?
Oh, wouldn't it be cool to hear Han's voice?
Yeah, I mean,
I would feel like that would raise more questions than it answers.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I mean, I take your point.
No, but even if it wasn't Han's voice, it was just him hearing Han's voice, sort of thing. I mean, it's his father, so he's still going to have certain elements of him impregnated into the the deepest chasms of his mind.
I guess so. It would explain why he makes that face in the trailer, because maybe we're not hearing the audio that goes with it.
Yeah, it could also be that he forgot to pee before he got into his TIE silencer.
I think he's
also
just
true.
I think he's been sick a little. He's had to swallow it again.
Oh, he burped. Yeah, I think
is that what it's called?
A vomit burp, a verp.
Oh, right.
I think if you heard Han's voice, it would be confusing for the audience because, that is when you hear a disembodied voice like this, it's Force Ghost. And to hear Han do it, like Rob says, poses too many questions and muddies the waters too much. And Star Wars isn't really the place for him to have sort of a flashback, sort of a Family Guy style cutaway to Han saying, "Don't do it." It would be a little bit off-putting. Anakin, I think, sort of fits the bill to me because of the connection Kylo Ren so desperately wants with Vader. If it was Anakin, the persona that Ben seems to identify as a weakness for Vader, that could be quite jarring for him. But I mean, my final position on this would have to be, I would rather Ben restrains himself from killing his mum because of Ben, and not because someone's jumped in and says, "Don't do it." I'd rather he show a little bit of agency over that decision and owns it and says, "I'm not going to kill her. I've already made one mistake I can't undo. I'm not going to do that again." So he could hear. It would be an exciting thing to hear a Force Ghost reach out to him, but I think the decision not to kill Leia on that command ship would probably be best to come from him, wholly and completely. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, no, it would.
I will say I think it has to be Anakin. If it's anybody, it has to be him.
It makes the most sense, right? It's the best fit, I think. Unless we learn somewhere in the narrative that he's trained with the Force Ghosts of Yoda and Obi-Wan, but then you're looking at a chunk of running runtime of that film explaining it. Or something's going to pop up in the bottom of the window saying, to understand this, like an editor's note, you need to read Star Wars comics number 35 through 40. They used to do in the old comic book panels, editor's notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't expect it to be a Force ghost, and I really hope for the sake of this character that it isn't.
Yeah, a ghost would be a bit unusual for that situation.
He's just battling his own conscience.
Yeah, voice would be good, I think, but that would be a bridge too far, I think, to have something physical and not corporeal, but something visible.
I think in the ships, I think that we'd always expect to hear the disembodied voice, and we've heard one already with Rey, haven't we? With the these are your first steps in The Force Awakens. So we've heard some disembodied voice, not seen the blue ghost form.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of weird if he just looks over and in his co-pilot seat there's a blue ghost of Ben Kenobi, and he's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah, exactly.
I have a message from your father.
You're a terrible namesake.
Yeah. I'm so sick they called you after. And you thought the audience was confused. Right. Let's move on. Paul, did you want to take Arthur's question? I've been quite excited about this one. Thank you, by the way, Paul, for your question there.
Okie dokie. Right, from Arthur Crouch. Good evening, Arthur. Good afternoon. Good morning, wherever you may be. Hello again. Oh, again. I'm sorry. I thought this was new.
Last
I have
week
some thoughts. Was it really? Oh my God, that's terrible. There's only two of us on here. I have some thoughts that have been intriguing me. In looking at the timeline, the novel Bloodline is 6 years before TFA. That means Rey is 13 at that time. In TFA, the flashback shows her presumably younger than 10. So it should be safe to say that she has no connection to the new academy. In brackets, spoiler warning. In Bloodline, the galaxy finds out the secrets of the twins' lineage. This moment, I feel, puts everything we know into motion. I wonder if this revelation is what keys the return of the First Order and Snoke. Do you think Luke becomes a hunted man from both sides? We know most people turn away from Leia in the novel, and all good she has done, thanks because I haven't actually finished it yet. Does the same thing happen to Luke? Does the Academy turn on him? We know Kylo does, for sure. Or does the Galaxy or Senate want Luke to stop training and decide to put an end to the Academy, beg your pardon, secretly by the First Order? I just wonder if Luke understands now that he cannot see everywhere without somebody wanting to take him out, and or the destruction of conflict within him causes when they challenge him. Sorry, that last bit. And the destruction conflict with him causes when they challenge him. Thanks to all, Arthur. So, a little breakdown. Did the Galaxy turn on Luke the way it turned on Leia in the events in Bloodline? And if so, as a result of that, the fall of Luke's school? I can't comment on the Bloodline thing, chaps, so I'm going to immediately hand back.
Yeah. I mean,
you two know the Bloodline inside out, don't you? So
yeah.
I don't know who read it most recently out of the two of us, but
I think we read it around
a while ago.
The same sort of time. It was last year, I think. But this obviously the idea that Leia took both barrels, really, from everybody. Once it came out that she was Vader's son, everybody turned on her. Once they found out that she was Vader's daughter, the whole galaxy kind of turned on her. And the way the book left it was she hadn't yet had an opportunity to break the news to Luke and Ben that this had all come out. But what I hadn't done at all was think how this would reflect back on Luke.
Yeah.
Because if he's trying to build a Jedi Academy and he's the son of this notorious Sith Lord, people are going to have an issue with that, right? Of course they're going to have an issue with that.
Understandable.
So could that have led to the fall of the school? I mean, it's to me, this is just an incredible perspective that I'd never even considered.
Yeah.
I
would be I'd be inclined to think that he was probably a bit of a hermit before Bloodline. So I wouldn't imagine that it would have affected him that much in his life at the time. I do agree that he's probably can't show his face since. So he's probably thinking, oh, well, it's a good thing I have to stay away anyway. But I can't imagine that his life was that deeply affected beforehand, because he was probably on some fairly remote planet, training Jedi. He might have also, to be fair, had a problem getting recruiting in the future. Parents less willing to send their kids to him and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe it would have affected turnout numbers and recruitment afterwards had everything not transpired the way it had anyway.
Do you think some of this could have motivated his decision to go to Octo in the first place? To sort of distance himself from the galaxy because of the reception that he's had and Leia had after the news came out?
I think that's definitely a possibility. But I'd be inclined to think that he's probably looking at Octo from the point of view of, how did I get this all so wrong? And he's gone looking for the earliest doctrines of Jedi philosophy before it was all kind of incremented upon by subsequent generations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's gone in search of the truest, kind of the most pure form of their kind of tenets. The earliest, rather, maybe not the purest, but the earliest kind of unmodified tenets.
Yeah,
that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, no, I think there's a bit of that, and the little library in the tree cave kind of adds to that point you've just made, doesn't it? That if that's something that he's found there, or if that's stuff that he's taken, maybe he's brought different resources together there to have it in one place. I still think there might be some connection to the Vader comic next month.
Okay.
You can listen to TSW Comics to get our perspective on what's happening in print at the moment, that how it dovetails into The Last Jedi, or maybe it won't.
Yeah, I did see something as well that said, if you were worried about spoilers for The Last Jedi, don't play the first piece of Battlefront 2 DLC until after you've seen the film.
Right, okay.
And maybe there's some story element in there that touches on that.
Right.
Who knows though?
Yeah.
I've not finished I know the campaign story, but I haven't finished it yet.
Mark Hamill's mentioned in some interviews this week that the real question we should be asking is why Luke didn't go to help Leia when she needed him.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real question. So
yeah,
he's not just on Octo because there's something there. There's something else motivating him. You know, we played with the idea previously that he might be there because there's a temple there and he needs another Force user to be able to access it. There's something else going on that's keeping him in hiding, and I'm really looking forward to finding out what that is. And I wonder if in any way the blowback from the Vader as Leia's father reveal has motivated this decision for Luke. I'm quite keen to get some more on this, because it's another one of those things with the story group at the moment where this seems too delicious a morsel just to leave there and not do anything with it. But there's been a couple of examples recently where something has offered itself up in storytelling for the story group to pick it up and run with it and give us an amazing story that ties neatly into the big screen stuff. It just feels to me like they're leaving a lot of this stuff on the field, and they have an opportunity to utilise it. They're putting this stuff out in other mediums, so why not bring everything together and have this one big, tightly knitted, cohesive story? But this feels like this might have been overlooked. And Arthur's the first person I've ever seen bring this up, that Luke must be subject to that same sort of attitude from the galaxy that Leia faced.
Yeah, but if he's already a bit of a hermit, which I get the impression he was, then it wouldn't have affected him to the same degree of profoundness. Unless
the First Order, unless Snoke's taken advantage of the witch hunt that followed Leia's outing, and to sort of discredit Luke in such a way as he was kind of chased out of town with pitchforks and burning torches,
Yeah.
And then Snoke can turn around afterwards and go, I'm the real bad guy.
How cool would that be if that all the burning down temples and stuff we've been seeing and attributing to Kylo are actually a mob?
Yeah, it could be that, the First Order has done it, but they've done it with the blessing,
like the blessing of the sort of wider galaxy, and the is it the populace or the centrists that are kind of Empire aficionados?
It's the centrists, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that formed part of Arthur's question. Does the galaxy or the Senate want Luke to stop training and decide to put an end to the Academy, secretly backed by the First Order? So that would make for a really interesting little wrinkle here. But
that's the Republic, isn't it? So he wouldn't. So maybe he went away because he's like, well, I'm not helping them in the future then.
Yeah,
because it would be the Republic who, it's the Republic Senate. Now maybe there's centrists in there who kind of have a decent sway, but they're not going to have a majority because that was the whole reason. That's the whole plot of Bloodline.
When Leia was almost installed as its head, this news came out, didn't it? That character that no one can ever remember her name. She did it to sort of spoil Leia's chances. And the impression I get is even though the Resistance has some Republic support, it's largely not recognised by the Republic as they're almost like a terrorist organisation, aren't they?
Yeah. But what I mean to say is that within the Republic, there's a split between the populace and the centrists because they can't agree. There must be a reasonable size split for them to be able to to have to elect a first senator in the first place.
Right.
And we know that, again, spoilers for Bloodline, we know that Castafo isn't in a position to be first senator by that point. So they're, both movements have lost their big figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
So unless Snoke takes the place of Castafo in the, starts to reveal himself gradually in that role.
I imagine him installing somebody in his place, somebody like this woman, would be a little bit more fitting because I think he's a little bit. He wouldn't necessarily fit in that environment because he looks like an evil guy, doesn't he? He looks like with his disfigurement and everything. He just doesn't strike me as being somebody that could take a lead political position and gather support, but he could install somebody in the role and be pulling the strings from the background, which I think is very much in keeping with his character.
Speaking of Snoke, did you see the latest? I don't know if it's in the show notes further down. Did you see the latest kind of speculation doing the rounds about Snoke?
There is something, I think, the
related to Bloodline.
I don't know. Well, let's wait until we get there, Rob, because it is in the show notes, and that, in fact, the title of this episode is "What's Driving Snoke." Yeah, in the Last Jedi. So there's stuff that's come out of Bresnikan's coverage that's quite revealing.
Yeah.
Okay. Arthur, I was really quite blown away by this question because it really did make me look at this dynamic in a different way. And I think it's quite exciting. And it's another one of those things that I really hope the story group don't just ignore. I hope they address it in some form at some point, rather than just leave this one on the ground, because it's too tantalising to see how this affected Luke, if at all.
Yeah.
It's cool stuff, though. Paul, are you still with us, Paul?
Yeah, of course I am.
Just listening to us waffle on. All right, what we're going to do is we've got a new spot, Rob, Casey's Corner.
Okay.
So I think we're just going to go to our break, and then when we come back, we'll jump straight into Casey's Corner, and then we'll follow that up with with a few Star Wars news stories. But stick with us. We'll have a quick break, and we'll be right back. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, then head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and become a patron. Your support will help us as we expand our programming to include further shows, and in return, you'll get access to an exclusive VIP Facebook group, a monthly prize draw, weekly Facebook Live sessions, priority release podcasts, an exclusive daily podcast, and a whole lot more. Head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars today and become a TSW patron.
And we're back. So you've just heard about how you can become a Talk Star Wars patron. by visiting Patreon and searching for Talk Star Wars. There's probably a really simple URL, but it was probably mentioned 10 seconds ago, and you can't just have everything for free. You're going to have to go and look back on it. So as is customary, we have a corner that happens after that point, and today it's Casey's Corner. So Casey writes thusly. Sorry, Connor. I feel like I've betrayed you. Hello again. To follow up on my question from last week, I have a very similar question for this week. What is your favourite or least favourite Star Wars game of any genre or format? Personally, I don't know that I've ever played any that I hated, but I'll mention a few that I loved. For video games, I have to say my favourite is Shadows of the Empire. I already know Paul is with me on this one, as he mentioned it last week. I spent a lot of my childhood playing that game over and over. As for tabletop role-playing, I loved Age of the Empire. For those not familiar, it's D&D, but set in the Star Wars universe. I had a game group before I moved, but was always a little hit or miss on the role-playing games. Then we did an Age of the Empire campaign with us as a covert team of agents for the Empire set in the days of the original Thrawn trilogy. Between the game being set in a universe I'm already into, the campaign being set during my favourite books, and the game system being so much more simple compared to D&D, we actually spent more time playing than looking up rules and numbers. That's kind of emphasising how much simpler it was. Age of the Empire had me hooked. The last one I'll mention is probably the most unusual game. It's called Star Wars Combine. It's a free online role-playing game that's been running for 17 years. It's set in the Star Wars universe, but none of the characters from the movie exist. So you still get the same universe, but the players control what happens and aren't bound to the events of the movies. It's run by a dev team of players who don't make any money off of it, but just do it for the love of the game. Because of this, the actual game interface is very simplistic, but it's the interaction with the other players that makes the game great. You can join one of dozens of factions or create your own. Factions can be anything from manufacturing companies, transport companies, mercenary guilds, or governments. Personally, I'm a proud member of the Galactic Empire, which over the course of the game has become impressively refined and structured for a faction in a game. There are multiple branches, ranks, an Imperial High Command, award ribbons, qualification badges, and more. I spent nearly 2 years as a pilot in the Imperial Navy. Over that time, I've slowly worked my way up to the point that I'm now a commanding officer of a naval group which is made up of other players. I would highly recommend this game to anybody who's into Star Wars and likes role-playing games. And for those of you smart enough to join the Galactic Empire, tell them Commodore Turk Killian sent you. Anyway, sorry this ended up so long. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. And breathe.
Well done.
Well done, sir. Seriously.
Well done.
I got some
lungs on me.
Now, just going to quickly ask. This is a rather naive question, but I'm going to ask anyway because you're allowed. He says 2 years as a pilot in the Imperial Empire. Is he talking 2 real, full-life years playing the game?
Entirely possible. It's been running for 17 real-life years.
From a real-time point of view, that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it does add to reality.
Yeah.
I mean, most people would be like, I can't do 2 years, but no. I mean, if that's how long you are playing in that environment with that kind of devotion and so on, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I wish I had that kind of wherewithal. Yeah, that kind of wherewithal. Who wants to go first on this one? Because I can go for days.
But you could probably have my time as well because I haven't done many of these. I mean, I lived in Shadows forever. I can't remember where I got. I mean, I haven't played that in such a long time. I remember do you remember the bit with the jetpack? You had to jump from pillar to pillar to pillar across the chasm.
Yep.
And then at the end, there was you had the skiffs, and then you had the railway.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to think how far this went because you did the bikes, you did the railway, you were jumping from track to track and car to car to car. After that, I can't remember the levels sort of thing.
No, there was an early level with IG-88
where
you had to sort of basically fight him in a sort of circular junkyard.
I remember IG-88. Yes. Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
You got up against Slave 1 at some point as well, didn't you? That was the jetpack part of it.
I lived that game for such a long time.
What format did you play it on? PC or N64?
I was playing Nintendo, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious because
the graphics went from beautiful to chunky as hell between levels. It really did go mad.
I remember the cutscenes being a bit rough as well.
It was fun. That's the thing. I mean, I don't mind my games being a bit heavy, a bit bleepy, a bit rough, and sort of thing. I'm still into that 80s romance. So
yeah,
just like Mark's playlist.
Yes,
yeah. Which is superb. I really liked. I had an N64 as well, and I did play Shadows, but I really liked Rogue. Was it
Rogue Squadron?
Was it just called Rogue Squadron? I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was one. So there was Rogue Squadron on the N64 and PC, Rogue Squadron 2 on the GameCube, and then Rogue Squadron 3 was also on the GameCube.
Right. No, this was just Rogue Squadron, and you had the little thing that boosted the graphics. There was this little add-on they plugged into the front.
Oh, the RAM pack. Yeah, the red one.
I bought that as well. Yeah, that was great. I was completely hooked on that, and I long for the days of those simple plug and play games without downloading upgrades or having to buy stuff just to stay in the game. I've never played tabletop though.
Oh, tabletop's fun in Star Wars universe.
I haven't actually.
I played 2 different systems, I think. Age of the Empire might have been one of them. It's relatively recent. In fact, actually, me, Joe. No, was Joe in the group? I don't know if he was. No, maybe he wasn't actually. I think it might have been in the days BC before Crouch. But Omer was definitely in the group, and the reason I know that is because he played what ended up being a suicidal Ewok called Asfat Chachu Cortez.
That's a simple, clean name to remember.
Yeah, so he was a Padawan of my Drunken Jedi Master character, and decided to draw the fire of an ATST, and the ATST obliged, and the GM for the night, our friend Brad, described it in this way: as a GM, you do everything you possibly can to keep the characters in the game so they come back for the next session, and still I was not able to save Asfat Chachu Cortez because every dice roll was so ridiculously over. And every stat was so ridiculously over because it was a light walker against a single Ewok with no cover, waving his arms in the air saying, "Hit me." So Omer, hopefully you're listening. Never forget.
We'll pour one out for you,
Chachu Cortez. Never forget. One for me and one's for Asfat Chachu Cortez, my homie. To be replaced later by a Tordarian debt collector who, when it came to the battle, became a master strategist because sometimes Omer gets excited. So Mark, have you got any more to add to the?
No, just
any bad ones?
Not especially. No, I don't think so.
I've got one. So best ones, I would probably say of all the ones I've played, the one that brings me the most kind of nostalgic joy is Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. Because at the time, I don't know if this is the thing. It's hard to look back on the history of video games and be sure about things like which was the first game to do X. Mm-hmm. But the Dark Forces series was certainly among the first games to allow you to move your aim upwards in 3D rather than just left and right. Because first-person shooters had been kind of all on one plane, like Wolfenstein. Obviously, you didn't go upstairs at any point. It was all done on one floor and things like that. Dark Forces was one of those ones that was very expansive and kind of went outwards. And Jedi Knight, I remember, even 6 months before it came out, reading the previews in the PC Gamer magazine and being so excited for the game, seeing the graphics and going, "Oh my god, these are amazing!" Now they look like pan-fried arse now, but at the time they were stunning. And I think it's one of those occasions. It happened a few times where we had to upgrade the family computer around the time of the game, so it would go from sort of, "Oh, I can't play this game at all," to "I can play it and it looks amazing." And that one was really good because it had a really good story. It had a mix of, you could play with blasters or you could draw your lightsaber, and it had first and third person view and all that sort of stuff. And it was one of, if not the first game to do a lot of that stuff. As for worst, I once spent a rotten evening trying to get the MMO Star Wars Galaxies to work.
Oh,
what a absolute crock.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of bad things.
I won't make you bleep that. Mm-hmm. I'll dig it up. Actually, I think I wrote a piece for Emotionally 14 about it back in the day. I'll see if I can find it and maybe I can share it on Talk Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because my feelings haven't changed. It was garbage, hot garbage, and one of the worst things about it was even I think it was 3 years after it had come out that I played a trial, and it was still full of massive game-breaking bugs. It's like, if you don't care,
yeah.
I can't be expected to care for you. So I gave it one evening and gave up. By contrast, I played the Old Republic once for a day, and I really enjoyed that, and certainly in comparison.
Galaxies isn't a thing anymore, is it? The servers are all shut down. No.
It's the Sony Online one. They lost when they lost the license.
Right.
They had to shut it all down.
Right.
Thank goodness.
I'm going to throw out an honourable mention. Because as you were talking, suddenly you mentioned...
Popped into your head.
Yeah, something popped into my head. And I remember losing a Christmas once to Lego, the first Lego Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. One about the one with episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, and I got it on. I was given this will date it. I was given a PSP, and that game came with it. And so all I did whenever like Lisa left the room was I got this game booted up, and then all she could hear from the background was just as I'm sort of building stuff with Lego
bricks. Yeah, Complete Saga is one of my favourite Xbox 360 games.
Addictive.
Lego Star Wars 1 to 6 in a single game. Complete Saga. Nice. I lost hours to that, and I was really gutted because I was trying to 100% complete it because I like doing that with Lego games. And I traded my Xbox in. I think it was either faulty or it traded in. And they said, "Oh, do you want anything off the hard drive?" I said, "No, I think I'm good." And then it only dawned on me about a week later when I went, "Oh, I should carry on with Lego Star." No! I realised that I'd lost my 40-hour save game. I was about 75, 80% complete with the whole thing, all the collectibles. I had to.
Yeah.
And I went back and finished the story again and then realised I can't do this yet. And I haven't been back and finished it since. I still could, though. Maybe I should.
They are fun games. I think I've still got them all on PS3, I think, somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Such good games.
Yeah, the only one I still don't still have is the Clone Wars one because I didn't find that one as compelling. Still entertaining, still a Lego game and all, but it wasn't nearly as fun. I'll throw one honourable mention into the mix. It's not widely regarded as one of the best Star Wars games. In fact, I believe it's regarded as one of the worst. But I really enjoyed it. And this is not Star Wars chess, although that's that had some entertaining moments, but that was largely trash as well. There was a game in the States it was called Rebellion, and in the UK it was called Supremacy, and it was a galactic strategy game, sort of way before the days of Sins of a Solar Empire and stuff like that. And you played either Empire or Rebels, sending a mix of famous characters and troops around the galaxy, trying to knock out the other one's defenses, sending ships to bombard the planet. All sorts of things like that, and it was all about kind of balancing the happiness of different planets with the military power and trying to if you were the rebels, you were trying to free the systems that were occupied by the Empire by force, and if you were the Empire, you were trying to convince them to stay on your side while the rebels were trying to sabotage all your gear. I lost hours to that game. Like I say, it's not regarded as one of the best ones because it does have a lot of issues, and I played it again not too long ago, and the graphics especially and the combat scenes, the battle map is incredibly shows its age. But as a game goes, like I say, in terms of hours spent, the Jedi Knight series in general, but particularly the first Jedi Knight game, and Rebellion would be my picks.
Is there anything on the Switch or planned for the Switch, Rob?
Not at present. I would imagine any future Lego Star Wars releases would make it there because they're already doing Lego Marvel Heroes 2 next week.
Right, okay.
So I would imagine all the Lego games for sure. Otherwise, your guess is as good as mine, to be honest. It would have been. It's annoying because Disney Infinity would have been a no-brainer, but it's no longer with us.
No.
Shame, because like I say, it would have been because the all the NFC stuff on Switch is really, really easy. You just hold up amiibos to the Switch and it just registers them.
Oh, superb.
Yeah, it's really everything about that console is superb. I could wax enthusiastic about it for days.
Maybe they'll get a few Lucasfilm licenses and we'll see some of that stuff come flying through.
I wouldn't mind actually seeing a cut down Battlefront type game on there. That would be good. Yeah. They've got multiplayer setup. It's just the servers aren't very good. So if they were to maybe package the campaign up and sell that,
not a bad idea. Work. Not a bad idea at all.
Yeah,
never know. Great, Casey. You knocked it out of the park for your second edition of Casey's Corner. Very interesting. Thank you very much. I need to get some Star Wars gaming back into my life. Something that isn't Battlefront. All right, should we move into some Star Wars news?
Sure.
That was. Is there any?
Yeah. Oh, but just is there any? Yeah. Just a quick note on listener comms this week. We had to set a couple of questions down. So if your question didn't make it into the lineup this week, don't worry, they'll be rolled across to next week. Do not fear. We will not leave anyone behind. It's just a case of don't be afraid, my little friend. It's just
be very afraid.
An effort to be somewhat expeditious, which I'm sure we're going to fail at once we get into the news. All right. Yeah. The Last Jedi news. So potential spoilers for The Last Jedi.
Steve.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Steve. EW, Bresnikan, our friend.
The Brez,
Anthony Bresnikan, doing the Lord's work again over at EW, which this month has 4 covers. Even the covers drop a bit of knowledge.
They're lovely.
No, they're a little odd, though, aren't they? I mean, sorry, but look at Poe's face.
He's Poe-based.
But he looks Poe's. I mean, he just looks like he's been drawn. He looks complete CGI.
He's just a beautiful man, Paul. That's what it is.
He's honestly, yeah. And
stunning.
I can't recall the name of the girl with Finn, so help me out here.
Kelly Marie Tran.
Yeah, it's Rose.
She looks similar. She looks like a composite image rather than just the girl sort of thing. They look a bit odd. That's what I'm saying.
A lot of these shots
and
we've
so
seen.
Does Kylo.
Yeah, well, we've seen all these shots raw. We've seen them all without the effects, just with the grey background. So, of course, when they comp these things together, they relight everybody, and that obviously that has to be done digitally. So, a lot of the alterations you're seeing,
but Mr. Isaac
the shot
just
work.
Looks a little. Okay, anyway, sorry.
He's just got one of those faces.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't look like that at all.
Also, I don't think you can see both of Laura Dern's hands, so we don't really know what's going on.
That's why his face is the way it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And the awkward...
Lucky boy.
The way he's leaning seems very awkward too, so who knows what's going on. Her name is Holdo.
Is that why the text on their one's a little higher than the other one?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, that's the text is just a little bit higher.
Credit.
Oh dear. So there's the above the title blurb on these covers, kind of giving some stuff to us there, aren't they?
Yeah.
Could Rey fall to the dark side? Could Finn get his mojo back? Will Luke and Leia reunite? That's a big question I have at the moment.
But they're standing next to each other.
Cover 3, can Poe get along with his new boss? That's a huge reveal.
Oh, that is, isn't it? Blimey, I didn't see that one.
That is
and we kind of
reveal.
knew that was the case, didn't we?
Well, apparently he's getting along very well.
We knew there was going to be a power struggle.
There'd been he's getting along really well with her there.
I still think she incarcerates Leia.
Something is definitely going to happen. This is the first time we've seen any official sort of mention.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form. It's all been speculation at our sort of level previously, sort of on podcasts and blogs, but this sort of above the title stuff on a major league magazine like Entertainment Weekly, that is a big one. So yeah, where we speculated that there was going to be some struggle for the control of the Resistance that would lead to some friction between Poe and Holdo because Leia would be out of the frame for a little while. That was all speculative, and now it seems to be, it's all coming together nicely. I wonder what it means for Holdo's position on the Resistance. Is she going to acquiesce to the First Order, sort of dial things down, make some kind of deal, surrender? Which way is she going to take things? But it's very interesting to see that above the title sort of reveal there. There's interesting pairing as well. I think these are the 4 stories that we're getting, right?
Yeah. I was concerned that, I thought that we kept seeing pairing situations coming via the trailers, but I think we make them up contextually in our minds anyway.
Yeah.
I was seeing, obviously, I was seeing the yin-yang pairing sort of things. Like, so Finn, to me, he was being paired with Phasma, if that makes sense. So it was a conflictual pairing I was seeing. This is a little bit more fresh on the eyes, though, to be completely honest with you. I don't know if it's purely for the whole male-female situation, but, it's... they make more really interesting relationships than just conflicting situations, if that makes sense. So, well, obviously, Luke and Leia, we just want, can you give her a hug and can you hug him back and can we get that bit back, please? Bearing in mind, Han's not in the picture anymore. So, sorry, those that haven't, been around for 4 years.
Well, those who don't want to be reminded of the heartache.
Obviously, the most intriguing, I might stand alone here, but the most intriguing, obviously, is where Ben and Rey go. So.
Yeah, I think that is a very interesting one. I think there's going to be a switch in roles there, personally.
It's interesting that she looks actually even more sinister than him on that cover.
I think that's by design, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
if they're trying to do a, not a misdirect, but a kind of a lead on.
But they are. They're using the words dark side, and she's sneering furiously.
Yeah, exactly. I think
she's
that's definitely
the one in
a
battle
lead.
position.
There's definitely a lead on because they want that to be something we're thinking about when we're seeing the film.
There's a fantastic image of her this week as well in Snoke's throne room, and in the background you can see Ben. You can see Kylo Ren standing there in soft focus, where she's sort of.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that image. Yeah,
approaching Snoke in the throne room, and
you think it's like a Jedi style situation where she's kind of willingly given herself over to get into the room?
Not entirely sure. I do get the feeling that she's going to follow Finn and Rose to wherever Snoke's throne room is, which I believe to be the Supremacy, which is his sort of flagship. I don't think that it's going to be a base. I think it's going to be a ship.
It makes the most sense for his character to be somebody who can move around.
Yeah, I think
rather
he would
than
always
somebody
keep
who's
moving.
fixed in a position of power.
Yeah. So I think he's kind of... Well, we're going to talk about Snoke and what drives him in a moment, but I think there's some desire on Snoke's part to replace Kylo Ren with Rey. But we'll get to that, and we'll discuss it a little bit more when we get to the whole Snoke of it all. But yeah, these could be our 4 stories. The Snoke story that will relate to Kylo Ren and Rey is 1. Finn and Rose, their story, which will be, I think, to buy the Resistance time by shutting down some technology that the First Order have. They will need DJ for that, and it will require that they enter the Supremacy in some way, shape, or form to achieve their goal. Then we've got the Luke and Leia story. She wants him back in the fold. Whether or not they will be reunited is anyone's guess. Ryan is not letting that out yet.
No.
And then we've got the fate of the Resistance.
On the Falcon. Look.
Yeah.
There's an interesting theme to these covers as well. Is that they could all conceivably have a storyline with Snoke. Every pair.
Yes.
So you got the Rey and the Kylo, obviously the most obvious one, the Force-related stuff. But you've got Finn and Rose aboard, what we assume aboard the Supremacy. You got Luke has obviously got some history there, and we guess that Leia has in some form, even if it's just passing knowledge of who he is. And obviously, he's the figurehead of the First Order, as far as we know. So there's a good likelihood that Holdo and Poe have something to deal with him as well. So he might be the one unifying thread that ties the whole thing together.
Yeah. Well, with regard to Holdo, this character is really starting to fascinate me. I think the destruction of Hosnian Prime is going to be still foremost on her mind. And the concern for her will be, we're next in the firing line. So how best do I reduce... And I'm not suggesting that Holdo's a coward, but that she's probably thinking, how do I keep the body count as low as possible? If I have to acquiesce to Snoke and his demands, perhaps that's the best thing.
What's almost the kindest way of doing it?
Yeah. How do I save the most lives?
Yeah.
But these are fantastic covers. It's
really nice. There's 2 missing though. There should be Chewie and Porg 1.
Yeah.
And Hux and Phasma. Where's Hux?
Wouldn't it be lovely, bearing in mind, if you look at the second one, bearing in mind who's sitting in the background, wouldn't it be nice to have a 3PO-R2 cover?
It would be nice.
Yeah, that would have been cool, actually.
As far as I'm concerned, they are the quintessential relationship in Star Wars.
I don't think they're going to turn up that much. I get the feeling they're going to be...
No, I agree with you. I don't think they will.
No. There'll be a BB-8 R2 exchange at some point, probably, for comedic effect.
It depends how much they relate R2 to Luke during the story, that's all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, obviously he's on Ahch-To, so there's that.
He carries his hands around in his limbs.
Like spare hands.
He's got a little hand bar in there.
He's got the stranger hand that he uses for special occasions. There's red nail polish on it. All right, let's move on from the covers to some of Bresnikan's wonderful coverage. The biggest question on my mind going into this movie, and the thing that I fear having spoiled for me the most, and I don't necessarily worry about spoilers, but what I really want preserved for the movie experience is Luke and Leia reuniting.
Okay.
I really don't know whether they will or not, and I have this huge sort of bittersweet feeling about it, because I think it's going to be heartbreaking if they do reunite, and I think it's going to be incredibly tragic if they don't, because this is the last chance to have it happen.
Yeah.
In EW this week, Ryan Johnson sort of made some comments about how even if he says the cover's beautiful, and even if that's all we get, that's something. He's being very enigmatic about it, and he's desperate to keep that element of the story secret. So what do you guys, what would your preference be? You want to see them reunite, or would you rather it be left open-ended?
As much as for nostalgia's sake, I'd like to say reunited. For the sake of an incredibly bold and interesting story, I want to see them just denied. And I want to see, basically, I still want to see my proposed ending.
Yeah.
And I want that to be a motivating factor in episode 9. I want Luke to be desperate for revenge, but wary of giving himself to his baser instincts. I want that to be a theme. He's trying to, potentially, if we're talking like a Rey goes to the dark side kind of, cliffhanger for the ending. So obviously we're going to have to wait, a year and a half, 2 years to find out her fate. I want us to be thinking also, is he going to be able to get her back without going down the dark path himself?
Yeah.
Because he's going to be, motivated by
revenge.
Exactly. Is that going to be a part of his thing? I'd love to see that play out. I don't necessarily. I'm wary that it's a little too risky in terms of cinema, in terms of production. But I want to see stuff like that. The whole point of removing all the old expanded universe is pointless if you don't fill it with equally adventurous and bold stuff. If you just then go and we talked about it before, if you go back and retread the old film beats and you just do kind of glossier versions of the old movies, then you've really just removed that whole expanded canon for not very much.
Yeah.
So I don't want to see that happen.
Paul?
Ultimately.
Right, I do beg your pardon. From a reuniting point of view, you're primarily talking about Luke and Leia, yes?
Yeah, just the two of them being together again on screen.
Now, the only thing is with this, it's been amplified obviously by Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
So we're in the hands of situation. Do we want to see it? Do I personally want to see it? No, but I want to know that they've been mentally bonded at least, and they're aware of each other's situations, and they're aware that they're both alive and well in comfortable situations. If that happens, I think these two have got enough going as characters to continue in whatever path they need to go down. But from the point of view of actually reunited on the screen, I'm not entirely sure how important that is, to be completely honest. But from a fanboy point of view, in relationship of Carrie Fisher, we all would love to see that. It would be beautiful, because it's not happening in 10. No, in 9. Sorry,
in 9 or 10.
So I'm trying to be as romantic as possible, but as obviously realistic as possible at the same time. It's a really tricky one.
Yeah.
I just want to know that Luke and Leia are completely aware of each other's health and safety and welfare, and they're comfortable, and they're they're smiling and moving along. It's all going to be okay. And obviously then we deal with the situation afterwards, sort of thing. But whether they actually get reunited on the screen, I'm not entirely sure if that's going to happen in this film at all.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously they've given us the understanding that the performance isn't changed, and they didn't need anything further. So anything that they've done is that that's it. Basically, there's not going to be a They can't awkwardly foresee in a reunion scene where one didn't exist before.
I know. So
if it's not in there already,
that's what I mean.
It's never going to be.
The people that are desiring, because of events, the people that are desiring for this to happen, be prepared for disappointment, guys, because we've got to deal with just facts at the same time, unfortunately.
Yeah, something else as well is that it will feel weird having Luke and Leia reunite and seeing Mark and Carrie on screen together when I really wanted to see all three.
Yeah.
When Han was still in the picture, and of course now
You sound like Steve.
but that would have been, that would have been wonderful, wouldn't it, to see our 3 characters get. But I'm beginning to feel that this new series of films, it's less about those characters and more about our new,
of course,
crop of heroes. So
I think that's what Ryan's going to be pushing a lot
focused
more.
on. Yeah.
Very, very subtly. I think he'll do it very, respectfully moving forwards. But I think that's what's going to happen.
And
it's a new generation right now. Simple as.
Bresnikan offered something in his article, an option for the way Luke and Leia's story could play out, and it could be that Leia will need to rescue Luke, and that would then bring the story full circle at face value. Luke he entered into this life, and his motivation was saving that princess, and now at the end of this story, Leia is motivated by finding Luke. Now, of course, she needs Luke for the Resistance, and the galaxy needs Luke, but she's being driven. She was motivated by a hologram that she saw being projected by R2 to send for Luke. It's kind of an echo of where we were 40 years ago with R2 projecting this hologram that pulled Luke into these events. So it is kind of a nice bookend to things. I'm just not sure which way I want to see it go, but I know it goes back to a point you just made, Paul. This entire thing is going to be punctuated now by the loss of Carrie. So if we don't get it in this movie, we know there's no chance of getting it. Yeah. And if we do get it in this movie, where do they go
won't be
with
good
it?
Enough.
Yeah. If we do get it, it's still missing.
It could be really minimal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wary that anything they do won't be good enough anyway, in terms of vocal minority reaction. But obviously they're the ones, because that minority's vocal, they tend to be the ones who get their way a lot.
Yeah,
they get at the very least they get a reaction. Yeah, and my worry is that it will be a case of we'll get something cool. And then it'll be like, oh, but it was not cool enough, because nothing ever will be, because there's nothing more there's nothing further they can do. Because, like I said, they couldn't go back and reshoot, thinking, they can't just fear the worst.
No,
because nobody's, it's about the benefit of hindsight, isn't it?
Bresnikan's available now in all good bookstores as long as it's Amazon.
Sounds amazing.
Bresnikan's coverage kind of underlines the point that was made by Kathy back in April, that they will not be recreating Carrie in any way, shape or form for the next film.
Yeah.
And Lucasfilm hadn't felt the need to reiterate that point, but Bresnikan does in his posts and his articles. So we know this is it. So there is going to be a degree of finality to this, and it will. I was kind of chatting to Dave Donovan about it earlier, about how it doesn't matter what they do, it's going to be heartbreaking. If the two of them are together on screen again, we know it's for the last time, that's going to be heartbreaking. And if they're not together on screen, that's a missed opportunity. That's going to be heartbreaking. So it's kind of a lose-lose, isn't it?
Yeah, again, you can't, it can't be viewed as a missed opportunity if that wasn't the original plan, and the original plan physically cannot be changed.
No one's at fault here.
No, I'm not suggesting they are, but it's,
of course, I'm not saying that.
It's I think it's a missed opportunity not having Han, Luke, and Leia together on screen again.
I see. Okay.
I'm just saying, by the same way, there's no way that could have been done, because it didn't service the story.
No.
And it's not really about those characters, so it was never really going to be on the table. But it feels like I would love to have seen those 3 characters together again, playing off of each other, with the dynamic being slightly changed, because we've never really seen Luke and Leia as brother and sister, and we've never really seen Han bounce off those 2 characters when Han and Leia were together, or let alone the parents. So we've missed a whole dynamic somewhere of these characters. We've missed a generation's worth of stories. So there is some sort of missed opportunity about it, but the stories we're getting now, they're not really about that, and we can't make them about that just because it fits into our nostalgia box.
Because it makes us feel better, yeah.
Yeah. So if they don't get these two characters together, I'll fully understand it, because if it doesn't service the story, then it has no business being there.
Mm-hmm.
But because I know it can't happen in the next film, I'm going to feel funky about it. So
yeah, well, I think we're going to feel funky about it no matter what. It's like I said, it's not going to be there's going to be no eventuality in the story that will satisfy everybody. And like I said, I don't think there's anything that will be good enough for what people have in their heads of how it should be, because ultimately what they have in their heads is gifted. Once again, with the benefit of hindsight, which Tim Truex at the Nerd Room calls a tour de force. I don't think he used the words tour de force, but I'm adding it.
Yeah, that was nowhere in there.
It's a Star Wars pun as well.
Yeah,
so
tomorrow that will be on the site attributed to you. All right, let's move on from the Luke and Leia of it all and discuss this news, which again should be considered a major league spoiler. Ryan actually came out this week and announced in no uncertain terms that Billy D. Williams will not be in The Last Jedi. There is no Lando Calrissian cameo in this movie.
You pointed out to me that Billy is sick anyway, right?
He's not a well man.
He's not been in a good way. I mean,
no.
Many people don't know, but being available on set, etc., for 2.5, 3 week shoots and sitting waiting and goodness knows what else. When you're in that kind of condition,
demanding work.
It's not going to be the best. People don't realise it is demanding work. I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Smith will get frustrated in a doctor's waiting room. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Amplify that by 100, and they might get an idea of what some actors say it's like to be on set, just waiting for the call and so on and so forth. So when you're older and you're in a sick way, give the guy a break.
No,
give the guy a break.
I mean, he's still doing some Star Wars work. He's voiced Lando on Rebels, and then
Oh, cool! Has he?
Yeah, oh yeah. He can then go into the recording studio, do his lines with or without the cast.
He's still got the silky tones then.
Oh yeah, he sounds different. No different. He's still
what have we here?
In fact, his representation this week said that Billy would be open to return to a Star Wars movie if people wanted to place the call. So they could make it work, and even if it was just for a small cameo. And one of the things Bresnikan mentioned in his coverage in EW was that Canto Bight seemed like the perfect place for a Lando Calrissian cameo, which I hadn't even considered. But of course, it's a gigantic casino. It would have been perfect.
If he'd operated it, or even if he was just a famous, and well-known figure within that sort of social circle.
Yeah.
Either way, it would have worked, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but just as the idea of that has me rubbing my hands together, I kind of think that would call attention to itself. And with knowing Ryan's approach to storytelling, if it didn't really service the story, all that thing can do, all that cameo by Billy D. Williams can do, is take you out at the moment.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, look, there's that guy from that thing we know. And so it's probably not going to
do... the guy from the Colt Malt Liquor adverts.
Yeah, every time. Yeah, so there you go. Big news this week, no Billy D. Williams. I think most of us were harbouring a desire for that to be a thing.
I would have been fine with seeing it in the same. And actually, when you, like you say, you mentioned the Canto Bight thing, that makes perfect sense in hindsight.
It really does.
Available now.
You're really driving that home.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
All right.
All right, let's talk about some TV spots, shall we? Specifically, TV spot 10, which I believe was entitled Tempt. Did you see this one?
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen all the TV spots.
I've seen, I think, all of them but that one.
Right. This is my favourite. Have you heard it?
No. You sound like Bruce. You're my favourite.
It's a bunch of stuff that we are already familiar with. But we're just seeing it from a different perspective or a different point of view, I guess, being Star Wars. So way back, the Celebration trailer starts with Luke's breathe, just breathe. And he says, what do you see? We get the idea that he's training Rey and guiding Rey through some sort of vision. Well, TV spot 10, entitled Tempt, shows us that again from a slightly different point of view. And we see Rey meditating on a rock. And Luke...
I just watched it.
You just watched it, so you saw Luke...
Yeah, it's really cool.
Luke leans in behind her, and the line of breathe, just breathe is still there, and he says, now what do you see? And you see her meditating, saying, I see the light I see the darkness, but there's something else, and it's calling to me. And at that point, her voice, there's a little bit of fear in there, I think.
Okay.
And then Luke.
There's a lot from Luke.
Yeah. This all cuts in around the scene we see the concrete crack, the rock cracks. Yeah. And he says about, I didn't fear this enough before, I do now. Before that moment, we see Rey getting lost in this vision or in this meditation, and Luke's calling to her, resist it, Rey. So whatever it is that's calling to her in her vision or in her meditation, he's telling her to resist it. And then he has to scream at her, Rey, has to scream at the top of his lungs, Rey, to break her out of whatever's happening to her. The rocks cracking, things like that, trying to build up a picture of what this scene is going to be like. And by the end of that moment, she will be left sort of, I think it's that scene where she drops and she puts her hand on the ground, she's out of breath at the opening of the first major trailer for this film. And then she'll crawl back up to the rock as Luke's walking away, and he says, I've seen this sort of raw power before. I didn't fear it enough then. I do now. So this moment in the movie is starting to take shape for me here. There's something in the Force that she's managed to connect with that Luke's desperate for her to protect herself against. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what that is.
Well, I've just watched it. Mm-hmm. The dialogue. So there's a few bits of dialogue that aren't tied into the visuals.
Yeah, there's some, and it's calling to me seems like there's something missing in the middle. It could be a longer take, and they've sort of put two ends of a passage together.
There's something else is missing from is not visually represented either.
What, when she's meditating?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You get what do you see? And hang on.
The original line
sure I'm going to do it again.
In the other trailer is, what do you see? The dark, the light, the balance. And it says it's so much bigger. That's it. I'm piecing together disparate parts of bits of material from different trailers and things. He says, what do you see? She says, the dark, the light, the balance. And he says it's so much bigger. And then I think it will come back to her and she'll say, there's something else. And it's calling me.
There's something else is there. Mm-hmm. But the light and the darkness isn't.
Right. To my mind, that still fits with that exchange, because we've heard
the sound doesn't sound right though.
No, because
it sounds like she's somewhere echoey.
Right.
Like a cave. Maybe. I don't know. It could just be. I mean, obviously these are all designed to titillate, so it could all just be tricks and stuff.
It will be very interesting to see it play out.
But I wonder
in one full run.
I wonder if rather than saying light and darkness, she's saying I see a temple on fire, but there's something else, and it's Kylo reaching out to her, and he's trying to show me something. Resist it, Rey. And then she cracks the ground because she's
seeing
pissed
something.
Off. Yeah, she's seeing something she's not particularly happy to see. Which, say, in this case, I think is probably Kylo reaching out to her, and she doesn't like him much, as we've established.
Right.
I still think that's big. I still have this feeling like that's a big theme of this, is that Kylo's trying to kind of interject himself into the training, and there's more to the story that Luke's keeping. Kind of.
She does mention Kylo in another TV spot. Have you seen the one that recontextualizes the time for the Jedi to end? And also the scene, they edited together the ending, I think it was the Monday Night Football trailer, where Kylo reaches out to her and she says, I need someone to show me my place and all this.
Yeah.
We all said, that's a trick, they've cut that together. Well, they had, so unsurprisingly. Yeah. And it was a scene in the cave where Luke's sort of deep in the cave and Rey's framed by the entrance to the cave, and she says, "Kylo failed you, I won't."
Yeah.
And then we cut back to Luke, and then that kind of fits to me with Luke making his way back to the entrance to the cave, and that line, "It's time for the Jedi to end." It all fits into that, but she acknowledges Kylo to Luke.
Yeah.
So if she was to view Kylo through a vision, I imagine her sort of being vocal about that and putting a name to it, you know?
Yeah. I don't know, maybe. It's entirely possible.
I'm wondering if what she's seeing in a vision might be a dark side version of herself, or a taste of the power she can have. If she gives it, much like Yoda did in the Clone Wars, when he was challenged by the priestesses, he sort of ended up connecting with the dark side version of himself, and it formed a part of his trial.
Yeah,
to resist.
Yeah, maybe.
I just watched TV Spot 8.
Oh, the Kylo Felger.
Now, yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Smith probably wouldn't get a handle on it, but everybody else, the rest of us got an idea. The whole Kylo failed you element.
Yeah.
They're immediately chicken feeding the idea of the student-mentor relationship failing there, and obviously that being a major part of the backstory.
Yeah.
Which I'm not entirely sure whether some people obviously are ready to pick up on, because all they know is that there's this young kid who's idolizing his dark side grandfather sort of situation, but not exactly a relationship with Luke as such. That was never fully revealed in any shape or form in TFA, was it? So the idea that they're actually advertising a Kylo failed you trailer is quite fun, and her determination in the way, I'm not going to. It's like, well, you might be might be feeding a little too much there, but it is what it is. So
the only time,
that'd be cool.
Sorry,
go on, Mark.
I was just going to say to Paul's point about we didn't really get that relationship between Luke and Kylo Ren or Ben Solo. The only thing we get is in dialogue when Leia tells Han, "That's why I sent Ben to Luke to train."
Yeah.
That's the only, we get that sort of from her, and it's unambiguous, but we don't really see anything beyond that, do we? We don't spend any time with Luke.
Well, we don't spend any time with Luke as a character anyway.
No, and we're not really getting that. We're not getting much from Kylo Ren about Luke either, are we? In The Force Awakens.
No, it's all about his
grandfather and his hatred of his dad.
Yeah. I was just thinking, it'd be cool is if she says because in the TV spot she says, "Kylo failed you, I won't." I would love it to just be an aside where he just goes, "Is that what he calls himself now?" Because he's been disconnected. Because he's been disconnected from the galaxy. He's never heard that name. Not in like a comedic who kind of way, but just in a sort of is that what he calls himself? That'd be kind of cool. Just as a little aside,
it would be, and. There's something about the Kylo persona that I suspect he would have had one of those moments with his uncle where he showed up with the Knights of Ren and reintroduced him, reacquainted himself, showing his uncle what he'd become. Kind of like a Red Dragon type way. It's he I think would take enormous pride in the transition from Ben Solo to this creature. And I think he wouldn't be able to help but rub his uncle's nose in it. But yeah, I like the idea that perhaps he's so far out of touch. But wouldn't he know through the Force? I don't know.
I don't know.
I suspect that there's a potential there for some issues, aren't there? Because you either power Luke down a little bit so that he's not in touch with what's going on through the Force.
Yeah.
Or you make him a little bit too powerful.
You could have shut himself off.
Yeah, so he can be found, I suppose, because that's a two-way street, isn't it, the Force? So.
Yeah. Another possibility that's kind of crossed my mind, I haven't quite fully formed it yet, so it's going to be a little bit rough because it's just popped into my head while we've been talking. There could be I kind of feel like there could be a reveal where Rey learns that actually Kylo was on the Jedi Temple world. Luke was there, and he let them go, and she's angry at him because that led to the death of Han Solo and the slaughter of millions of people by the Starkiller base.
Yeah.
So he had the chance to stop Kylo, and he didn't take it.
Yeah.
And so Rey's angry because she doesn't, and maybe that results in an argument between the two of them because he says, well, what would you know about having to choose between family and, what's it called? And doing what,
duty.
Choosing between a few people and millions if they're family. You wouldn't know. You're an orphan, And maybe she's like, you what, mate?
Yeah.
Nuts him. And then he's on the floor saying it's not going to go the way you think. She's like, whatever, bruv, and walks off.
I think
and then the EastEnders thing in place.
There could be, by John Williams, there could be two Skywalkers guilty of that in this movie because I think part of the reason Leia might be removed from power is because she doesn't put Kylo Ren down when she has a chance.
Doesn't toe the party line.
Yeah,
That's what Bonds do.
If he fails to take the shot and she fails to take the shot, someone's going to answer for it.
But I'm still totally and utterly not totally, I sound like an addict. I'm still wound into the simple line of it wasn't a trailer, it was, do you remember the behind scenes reel? And pretty much the very last couple of lines were simply Carrie Fisher saying, it's about family.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And I'm really hoping that rings true in this, seriously.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a better feeling for it. Primarily because of obviously what the film can deliver, and primarily because of obviously what Carrie Fisher was about. So,
her story certainly is about family because that's her boy seems to be all she's got left.
He's a wrong-un.
He is a wrong-un, and no doubt.
Yeah, no argument there.
All right, let's talk about Snoke. So,
about time. That's hindsight. Available now.
Snoke.
Can you keep talking like this all day tomorrow, Rob? By the way.
Yeah.
I'm loving the opportunity to just work really convoluted ones here.
He's going to want a commission, you know that, don't you?
No, it's fine.
So far, we got about 8 pence, by the way. So.
Yeah, it's fine.
We're not going to spend it all at once or all in one place.
I've spent it. Sorry.
Very wise.
So Snoke is driven by greed and pain. This is according to Bresnikan's coverage again in EW. Snoke is driven by greed and pain in The Last Jedi and is growing ever so disappointed in Kylo Ren that he hasn't lived up to his expectations. So will Snoke cast Kylo aside in favour of Rey in this movie?
I talked about this last week.
Indeed.
I talked about this, a year ago when we were talking about the possibility that he's playing the long game. So yes. I think it's always been a part of the plan.
Yeah.
I think it's the grand scheme. I don't think
Snoke
it's necessarily
always been waiting for her, do you think?
Yeah.
I think.
Well, even if it's only since TFA, because he does say, "Bring her to me," doesn't he? In TFA.
I think it's gone, and I think I'll go one further. I think when he says, "When I first found you, I saw raw power, but also something truly special," I think he's talking to her.
Yeah.
I don't think he's talking to. I mean, it's designed to make it look like he's talking to Kylo, but I think he's talking to Rey.
It could go either way at the moment.
Yeah.
I think the more dramatic option is for it to be Rey.
Yeah. Although it could be, if he's talking about, if it's a disappointment angle, then he could be saying that to Kylo, saying, I saw raw power, something truly special, somebody who could wield the light in the dark when you've let me down, you ponce.
It could be, because we know Kylo goes to Act 2.
Yeah, we
that's heavily suggested, yeah.
Strongly suggested. We haven't seen anything yet officially.
I think we know.
Yeah, I think.
No.
I actually think he's talking to BB-8, but he's talking about R2.
I think with
let the past die.
With this whole, there's some interesting stuff that's come out from this coverage this week about Snoke's hatred of the Republic, and also that his appearance, apparently in EW also they quoted that he's 9 feet tall. Not sure I buy into that. I think he was always designed to be 7 feet tall, and the action figures would certainly lend themselves to that. But even if he's
only about 6 inches, if the action figures are to be believed.
If he's 9 feet tall, he's got this idiosyncratic cranial structure, this smashed in jaw, and all those scars. That had to come from somewhere. And he's got this deep-seated hatred of the Republic. And I was reading this morning, and for some reason I thought, I wonder if this guy was a part of something put together by Palpatine at the time of the Empire. And the reason he's harbouring all this hatred now is because of the lost opportunity Now, this is based on some of the stuff we have in the comic books about Inquisitors. The Inquisitorius was this. It was a group that Sidious put together of former Jedi Temple guards. We think possibly former Jedi hopefuls. They refer to themselves as brother and sister, so you get like the sixth brother, the seventh brother, and all that sort of stuff, or the sixth sister or whatever.
Yeah.
Palpatine put that stuff together to work for the Sith, and I'm wondering whether or not Snoke might have been part of a cell of those force-sensitive or force-capable individuals who were being primed for their moment to shine when the Empire fell.
Okay.
And that might be and that might explain the scarring, and that will certainly explain the rage at the fall of the Empire and his desire to sort of obtain as much power as possible. It would also explain why he's so familiar with Anakin and the weakness of Vader, because he's in touch with all of that stuff through his connection to the Sith. Yeah. Not necessarily Sith. The storytellers are going to great lengths to underwrite that.
Yeah, I tell you what as well, it would also explain, I mean, this is kind of a bit of a reach. It could also explain why the first piece of Battlefront 2 DLC is called Resurrection. If he's somebody who's been left for dead, or presumed dead, then that would fit. As I say, it's a reach, understandably, but you never know. It would be a little bit of a. I think it's one of those wishful thinking things. Like I've talked before about how I think that we as invested power user fans get a little bit lost in the weeds because we kind of assume that everything's made with us in mind, and it's really not.
Yeah, but that is something that is always a column that I go to when I'm doing my due diligence, just for myself. Doing my due diligence as I work across these things. I'm thinking, well, this all really works, but 90% of it is really deep cuts. Yeah. And we've said before, we say it all the time at TSW Comics, the books aren't required reading. They shouldn't be required reading. Steve should be able to go in and immediately access the story of The Last Jedi. If it depends on you reading 12 months of comic books to understand it, then someone's doing something wrong. Yeah. So when I come up with these fanciful little theories and I'm thinking, this works, and I'm start to construct my headcanon around what I'm exposing myself to, it doesn't work if I don't divide it then by, can this be accessed by a general audience? Yeah. If it can't, or if it requires 20 minutes of the film to be devoted to that one aspect of the story, that doesn't work.
No.
I know that Ryan has made comments about Snoke and said, we will, and this too is in EW this week, he said, we will learn as much about Snoke as we need to for the story. It's a little bit like the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back. Luke knows the Emperor exists. He knows he's the bad guy behind Vader. Yeah. But he doesn't know the story of the prequels at the time. No. We got those in 3 films 20-odd years later. Luke doesn't know that. We're probably not going to find out all the minutiae of Snoke's story in this movie because that doesn't service the plot of this movie. We'll know as much about Snoke. If we know that Snoke's angry, he's being fueled by his anger and disappointment, that's all we need to know. We don't need to know what put him there.
Big assistance on the dark side, sir.
You what? Sorry, say again.
So there's a big assistance on the dark side, isn't it? Fueling and hate and anger. So.
Yes, yeah, indeed, yeah.
So the strength barometer goes through the roof.
Yeah. Yes. And he seems to be applying some of what he's learnt, or somebody in that position, if we were to assume that he has a connection to the Sith and the early Empire, he's certainly applying some of the lessons learnt by their failings to what he's doing now, I would say. And even his approach, like another thing that popped up, because Andy Serkis had a big part in this article I was reading today. Yeah. There's a lot in there about how Snoke leads an opulent lifestyle and spoils himself because, why not? You're this close to death. You're in physical ruins.
You've basically survived something that theoretically you've survived something that nobody else should be able to. It makes you take stock and appreciate, and and much more hedonistic as a result.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he'll have it and experience it while he can. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of really cool insights without them nailing any one thing in particular in this article. There's a lot of really cool insights about this character and about what's motivating him, and a lot of stuff about how cruel he is, how he plays Hux off against Kylo Ren to sort of motivate them both. So you get that thing where both the children want to try and please the father figure, and now I think Kylo needs to sort of prepare himself for the fact that he was most likely going to be cast aside, which I find somewhat disappointing because, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'd rather Ben's decision to return be Ben's decision and not a lack of options. So if Snoke casts him out and that's what leads to Ben returning from the dark side, I think that's a bit of a pity. Sorry, Paul, you want to say?
No. Just I think it's just another slice of a bigger pie. Basically, I think he's going to feel he's going to discover where his true, honors lie, for want of a better term, or his true being lies. We may like that, we may not, but I think the effect of whatever happens with Snoke and Rey and stuff is going to be an element of that. It might be, it's not the entire decision.
Okay, yeah. No, that's good. That appeases me, so assuages my fear somewhat. Yeah,
that's what me and Rob live for at the moment.
That assuages your opulent lifestyle.
Yeah,
paid for with hindsight money. Even though it's so cheap,
it is affordable. I mean, you're almost a fool to miss it.
I think so. I think that could be. We'll look into that. It's getting that done as a definition of foolishness. Maybe it can appear in the dictionary next to the word foolish is a receipt for a book other than hindsight.
Yeah, and just a picture of me holding up hindsight, giving a thumbs up. So that's some of what's driving Snoke anyway. That anger and frustration and disappointment at Kylo Ren's inability to live up to his expectations.
Yeah, I still think that's always been the plan. I don't think that's a new thing. I think that's always he's trying to get the most out of Kylo, but at the same time he knows that that's not his long game.
Yeah.
Ignited by fear.
Indeed, propelled by it. Okay, this week's cover art for the podcast is that stunning image of Luke in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon when he steps in and powers up, all lights come on around him, and he's standing on basically a ghost ship. There's a few comments floating around this week from Mark and from Ryan Johnson on the subject of Mark Hamill's time on that set, which I believe during the production of The Force Awakens it was referred to as Stage M, the Millennium Falcon. That's when Kevin Smith visited it.
Yeah, and
there's a couple of really nice little comments here to go along with that image of Luke on the bridge of the Falcon. Would you call that the bridge? A cockpit?
Cockpit, yeah.
So in the cockpit.
Cockpit. It's not a bridge.
Okay. So Mark says, I'm telling you, I didn't expect to have the reaction I had. I was there with my family, my children Nathan and Griffin and Chelsea and my wife Mary Lou.
They have the coolest names.
Seriously. They do, don't they? And Lucasfilm asked if a documentary film crew could be there with me when I came back onto the Millennium Falcon. I mean, it was not a shooting day. I was just in street clothes and going to visit the set. And I said, sure, I really want to see that footage. I really want to see it. I'm sure there's going to be another BTS reel come out at some point.
Maybe on the
DVD special, sir. DVD
on the release,
special.
yeah.
But that would be really great to see them go on board. And I believe I'm right in saying that Stage M, the Millennium Falcon, is the completed set from the outside. And when you go up the ramp, Roger Christian has actually set decorated inside as well.
Okay.
So when Kevin Smith went in, he walked up the ramp and just walked into the completed set of the Millennium Falcon. So it's like a real thing. And of course, Kevin Smith cried.
Yep.
And I almost cried just hearing the story. So there you go. And I'm not a stoner. He is. Mark continues.
That's relevant, but okay.
all of this happening to me again was, it's hard to put into words. I figured when the prequels came out, plus a few years, people would forget about us, but it never really went away. I feel like, I need to calm things down because it's one of those things. If you start crying, I'll start crying. So stop it. And I think that's kind of cool. This is a guy stepping back into an environment he probably hasn't been in 40 years. Because he wasn't. The last time he was on the Falcon was Empire, right? Very, very briefly at the end of Empire.
Yeah.
So Luke only really got that ship in A New Hope.
Yeah.
He was never on board in Return of the Jedi.
And I mean, can we assume, even from a production point of view, that Mark would have been a little nonchalant about the whole Millennium Falcon set because of the lack of time he might have spent there?
Yeah, possibly.
So from his point of view, going back, that would have been a massive experience.
Yeah. Yeah, if he hasn't been there since he was... I mean, really, he spent most of his time shooting there with Alec Guinness and Harrison Ford, didn't he? So it would have been 76 or something like that.
Yeah, that's...
Wow, can you imagine that? Ryan had a comment on this as well, Ryan Johnson. He says, God, I remember so vividly getting that shot of him turning on the lights in the Falcon cockpit. And we all kind of looked at each other just like, oh my God. There's a lot of melancholy, Johnson says. You know, that ship is just filled with ghosts for Luke. I'm getting that off of Mark in that scene as well, in waves.
Yeah.
That is coming off of him, isn't it? Especially sort of standing between those two chairs where his best friend once sat. It's kind of cool.
I wonder how honourable the entire makeup of all the instrumentation is compared to the original, Lucas build.
Spot on, I think. I mean, is
it pretty faithful? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty faithful. There's always been there was a step up between A New Hope and Empire. If you look, the lights across the back, you can see on the cover art here in the show notes that there's the doorway, the archway, and there's the lights to the left and lights to the right, like a strip, a bar of lights. Well, in A New Hope, they have corresponding lights that come along the left and right hand wall towards us, towards camera, and they never lined up. But by the time we got to Empire, they were perfectly aligned. So there was a change between A New Hope's cockpit and the Empire cockpit, but this, I think, is exactly the same as the Empire and Return of the Jedi cockpit. And they were pretty fastidious about the drawings they made to make sure that it was exactly the same as where it was before. And even Harrison Ford said they actually stumped up the extra cash to put springs in the switches so that the springs all stayed where you put them. The switches all stayed where you put them. It's one of those things that hits you in the feels. When I saw that shot of Luke entering that environment, it's just like, oh my God, the last time he was there was the very end of Empire.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, we're drawing parallels that these characters might not. Because we don't know if this is the first time Luke's been on board this thing since Empire, or in universe, he might have been on this, and he might have been the one that left it on Jakku.
Yeah,
for all we know. But it's we've got a way to go, I think, with this ship and Luke's story.
Do you think Harrison pulled him one side and went, "Hey kid, mind the door"?
Yeah, yeah. His leg hurting him, bless him, as he's telling the story. All right, talking to Solo, let's wrap things up this evening with this news from kind of from Solo, A Star Wars Story. It's the first public comment by Lord and Miller.
Solo. I read that.
Just really quickly before we move on, have you seen the latest TV spot?
Is it back?
It is back.
Cool.
Yes, yeah, I saw that.
That's pretty cool.
I saw it today.
Hi.
I've added a new player to the homepage of talkstarwars.co.uk today. Yesterday I did it. It's next to the Star Wars show. There's a new playlist which is called Must See Videos. And every time one of these sort of TV spots pops up, or one of the behind the scenes things like the Crystal Foxes that came out the other day, I've been tucking it in there. So there'll always be a new Star Wars video on the homepage of talkstarwars.co.uk.
Yeah.
So where else would you need to go if it's all right there for you?
Yeah.
All right, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Lord and Miller have commented on their Solo departure for the first time in public. and this was all class. So this was Phil Lord that said, the experience of shooting the movie was wonderful. That they were at the Vulture Festival last weekend. In terms of us leaving the project, everyone went in with really good intentions, and our approach was really different from theirs, and the gap was too big. He continues, sometimes people break up, and it's sad. We learned a lot from our collaborators. We're really proud of our work, and wish everyone with we wish everyone with the best. So that is just incredibly classy, right? And shows what. And I don't know. I didn't expect anything less, but it just goes to show how.
Yeah, we did. I think we said as much. You know, they're not going to. People expecting it to be
mud flinging,
mud singing and stuff are going to be disappointed, because that's not what's going to happen at all.
It's not worth their while.
No. Well, also, I don't think that's the experience they had. I think that's what people. It's almost like there's a few.
No, that's what the media wanted.
Yeah, the media
exactly.
The media wants it, and the naysayers want it because it makes for a more interesting story. But that's not 99 times out of 100, the most interesting story is not reality.
Yeah.
So it's not. I'm not surprised in the slightest that they're classy about it.
This was probably 3 quiet conversations, and that was it.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, look, we were really thinking it would be different to this. Like, oh, what did you have in mind? Oh, well, more like this. Oh, well, that's really not what we had in mind at all. And, we really kind of like the idea we've got. Okay, well, then I guess we can't go forwards anymore. All right. Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah,
credits.
Their credits. Their statement at the time seemed to suggest precisely that, didn't it? That, it was creative
because
differences.
There was nothing else to say, really.
Yeah.
It was creative differences. And I just think
things got really heated when Lord punched Alden on the set.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do they want?
Who knew that Donald Glover could be headbutted so easily by a director?
Yeah. Or they just sick the Wookiee on him.
Yeah.
It's I think a lot of people expected either a complete radio silence from these guys, or were waiting. Like Paul's just said, they're hoping that there would be some poisonous words, some poisonous comments, or some mud thrown, but I'm so glad that wasn't the case.
Well, the only mugs in this story are the ones who are expecting that.
These things have different situations to the world we live in. The world we live in, when you hear the word fired, you expect a bit of fire and brimstone and a bit of something attached to it. When you hear the word fired in these situations, it happens all the time in the most subtle approach.
Yeah.
It's just a parting of the ways in a production. That's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
They came to a mutual decision.
They
clearly.
did. They were still. Yes, they were technically dismissed off the set, but it's not like, oh, what the hell are you doing? You're fired.
You'll never work in this town again.
No, it's not. It's not Sugar pointing across the desk for crying out loud.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith need this kind of situation because
we
don't live in that situation.
I don't know why you keep hanging out with them.
They live next door.
You're Mrs. Smith. You seem to hold them in such contempt.
I'm a Jones. Next door, there's a Smith.
It's ages old. They fight like cats and dogs.
Notice Jones always comes after Smith.
Yeah.
Because they save the best.
Oh, well, there you go. See.
That's why I'm the and.
Not how alphabets work, but okay. I know this is a Wade.
Oh, well, there you go. That's it for this week. The Lord and Miller comments, I think, are a nice way to go out. I hope that this kind of draws a line under that drama, even though I know that it really, really won't. But it's nice. I think they could have.
Common sense, that should be.
It could have driven the drama along if they'd have stayed quiet on it. And I think now coming out and sort of saying something like this, and us all seeing that there is no fight there. I mean, we didn't expect it, but certain people wanted it. There is no fight there. It can kind of take a bit of the heat out of the subject now, and we can let it sort of die.
On.
Yeah, whilst Ron's over there sort of crafting this movie for its May release date, which is still a thing, which is still kind of beyond me.
Interesting to know. I've got a bit of a palette now for this solo movie because I think I was quite open some moons ago when we saw all the teaser logos and things come out, and the idea this was going to be a little bit more fun and a little bit more spunky, and the whole what's it Red Cup?
Red Cup, yeah.
Yeah. Spunky's quite a common term, Mark.
I know.
Just grab up a little, will you? Please.
That was actually me. But yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Two Wookiees and one red crab. Well, yeah, go on. Carry on.
But we got the idea this was going to be like this maybe slightly loose Western type feel and so on.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, as time's gone on, I'm much more attracted to the idea of Ron Howard giving us a slightly more serious movie, if that's the case. Okay. A lot more attracted, yeah.
Fair enough.
Plus, Ron's God, as far as I'm concerned. So.
I like a bit of Ron. Who doesn't?
Yeah, I really do. I like him a lot, and I'm excited for what he's bringing.
Clickbaiters, Lord Miller, but we don't. So there's that.
All right, let's wrap this thing up then. So thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. Sorry, Stephen never actually made it. I'm sure I can hear his alarm going off from here.
Because he sucks.
Yeah, unless he's just really committing to his bit. All right, you can support us by becoming a member of our Talk Star Wars community. Just by simply heading over to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and sign up as a patron.
Yeah.
Join us over there and you'll get access to a bunch of stuff, get priority release podcasts and what have you. Otherwise, you can support us just by heading over to iTunes, to Apple Podcasts, and leaving us a 5-star review. And you can take advantage of our Ron Burgundy guarantee, which means whatever you write in that 5-star review, we will read on the show as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, or you just want to send someone a message, you can do so there. That's a lot of fun. Or you can email us your questions and your comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or reach out to us on one of our many social platforms like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, to name a few. So, gentlemen, where can people find you between episodes of the podcast?
You will find me at Rob Wade Vision, and you also find me at Emotionally 14. Where would they find you, Rob?
I don't know now.
Is it Wild About Nature?
Yeah, you can find me Jeremy_Mr. Rowling. No, you can find Paul at Movie Score News, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rob Wade Vision.
Oh, you told me.
Yeah, we're good, aren't we? No.
You can
we're everywhere, mate. Prolific.
I sometimes lie awake looking at the ceiling, wishing I was Rob.
That's disturbing. You can find Stephen at Emotion. No, God. See, now you got me doing it. You can find
Wild About 14. Wait, no.
You can find Stephen on Twitter at Wild About Nature, or by searching Stephen_Ware. And you can find him on YouTube, also Wild About Nature. You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm also on Twitter at talkstarwars. And you can pick up Hindsight at talkstarwars.co.uk/hindsight. That's it. That's it.
Paul at Movie Score News.
Yeah.
Moviescorenews.com.
And you just Googled that, didn't you?
Does that have a Facebook page, Paul?
Yes.
It does. See, I would have known that if I Googled it. So I did this from memory.
And just to make life easier, everything's linked in the show notes. So just download those from the description to this episode.
There anyway.
Including links to the rest of the Commonwealth, which you'll find at StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Our partner shows, Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, the Rogue Squadron podcast, the Skyhoppers podcast, the Nerd Room, and San Diego Sabers. Yeah, there's a contact us.
Yeah, button. Rob, we're not in here. Don't listen to him.
You are in there. Contact us. If you click on Contact Us, it takes you to the page with all of our details.
Contact.
Oh.
Didn't think that was going that way.
Yeah, we got ready to take it down a time code. All right,
even on there, I'm the last.
Twitter and Instagram, Rob Wade Vision, emotionally14.com. Boom.
That went really smoothly this week, didn't it?
Thank you.
Those outros were really slick.
We are
We're going
to
get the most correspondence we ever had, though, Mark. I guarantee.
It's great.
It's almost like we've been doing this.
I loved how
years.
succinct you kept it. Take my money.
All right, that's it. We're done. I'll see you next week, everybody.
Bye there.
Pedals.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
Rogue Squadron Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
the Nerd Room Podcast,
and San Diego Sabres Radio Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Take your first steps to a larger world.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
I'm looking at Casey's corner. Man alive.
Oh, yeah.
It's big. Big one. Oh, boy.
Ooh. It's been a week, hasn't it, Paul?
Yeah.
It has been.
I was at the O2 last night.
Oh, was you? What was you doing up there last night?
I went to see Depeche Mode.
I was going to say Depeche, wasn't it?
Superb.
We had a bit of a crappy evening, actually.
Really?
Oh, really?
Well, it was a crappy evening, but...
Miss out on the print exhibit. Yeah.
No, the issue we had last night was...
The highway star.
Jen and I were on the floor, because I took Jen, or Jen took me, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
So we got floor tickets, and the entire perimeter of the floor has got like this 2-yard pathway where you can't walk and you can't stand. You can walk, but you can't stand because it's for letting the paramedics run up and down and people getting, so on and so forth. So where it's quite jagged. So if you stand on the corners, theoretically, because no one can stay in that part, no one's ever going to stand in front of you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we found this big corner, if you like, of the path. I said to Jen, if we stand there, no one's going to stand in front of us all night because they're not allowed to. But you'd be amazed how many selfish people turn up to a concert about 8 seconds before the band are due on and just stand there in the middle of almost like the emergency path and go, well, it's not my fault. I just got here. Well, not being funny. If you're going to a Depeche Mode concert or any concert for that matter, you plan to get here like half an hour to an hour before it starts and you get sorted. And hundreds of people came in and clogged the entire path area up, and it got quite nasty, actually. Security did not know how to handle it. No. And I know I'm kind of dissing the O2 right now, but it was a very disappointing experience.
Yeah, understandable.
And Jen and I, we're not the tallest creatures in the world. So in the end, I just looked at her and I said, look, I'm spending more time worrying about the next security event because it was getting very heated. There's a lot of language flying around and there's 1 or 2 pushes. And so I said, look, I'm spending more time thinking about what's going to happen next. And I don't think I've heard any of the last 4 songs. Yeah. Should we just go and chill at the back? I'd rather not see and just dance.
Yeah.
And in between the shouting, she's like, let's just go. And we went to the back and we had no idea how packed this place was last night, seriously. Because you go to any kind of stadium concert normally like this, or maybe even the O2, and like the last 3 quarters is quite open and empty. The O2 last night was packed floor-wise all the way to the bars.
I can believe it.
Sardines, absolute sardines. So I'm sitting there thinking, next time I'm getting a chair.
Yeah.
Take one of those little fold-up spiky chairs.
We had a good hour, maybe, but for half an hour, 45 minutes, it was a worry. We just stood there wondering, what's the next thing? Who's going to stand in front of us? Is there going to be another fight?
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. So, it was a pain, But, I mean, fortunately, the 2 of us, we went to see them at the Olympic Stadium in July, so we did have we had a good bite of the pie then, so we weren't we weren't disheartened. But
not the end of the world,
Yeah, of course not. First world problems.
Yeah, I thought you'd done that before, actually. I was having a sense of deja vu.
In light of the problems last night, I'm now looking to maybe go and see them somewhere in Europe over the next few weeks.
Cool.
Oh, really?
We'll see how it goes. I've got to convince people. Rant over. O2, I love you. Hate you. Really.
Just in case that makes it onto After Dark Show.
Never know.
Maybe it'll be this week's post credits sting.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
if I ever told you how I think Brixton Academy could off, I'm kidding.
I kind of like Brixton, actually.
I like Brixton.
At least it's got a ramped floor.
One of my favourites. I saw one of my favourite gigs I've ever been to there. I saw the Goo Goo Dolls, and that was superb in the Brixton. And it was about, like sometimes you get a band that's the venue's just the right size. It's not too big for them, and it's not too small for them. So it's not like super cramped, and it's not like really depressing looking.
Yeah,
it was
just got a nice feel though, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just an absolutely bang on venue for a Goo Goo Dolls concert, and it was just great.
Have you been to the Roundhouse, Rob?
It's Camden, right?
It's got a similar feel. Yeah, it's got a similar kind of feel.
It's
just it's a bit more modern and kind of scaffoldy, if you like.
Yeah.
But
I haven't.
It's just this great circular floor with a few, scaffolded seats around the edge. It's just fantastic.
Oh,
really good acoustics. Really
I saw
good acoustics.
Alice in Chains in a venue like that.
You're such a goth.
Oh, you'd be surprised, mate. No, Alice in Chains was my sister and one of her friends were massive fans. I liked quite a few of their singles, so
I think Steve saw Rick Astley there.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would go. I would probably watch that if he turned up somewhere in like in a Castle Gardens or something. Do you know who's playing Canterbury next year?
Canterbury, what? Arlo or what? What are they playing?
No, I think it's part of like an all-day festival or something. But Aha are playing.
Oh, no, really?
Yes. Yeah, there was a news story about it the other day.
I used to quite fancy Morton. He was quite hot.
He is. I texted my friend Paul and said, like, if we can go to this, we definitely should. Because we're not going to get another chance, because I think they've retired now, apart from live tours. They're not doing albums anymore.
Tears for Fears are touring again as well, aren't they?
Are they really?
Yeah. That name was flashed around in the O2 a few times last night.
I'm listening to a lot of Tears for Fears at the moment.
Okay.
I bought their greatest hits, and
I still like The Hurting. It's one of my favourite albums ever, The Hurting. It's miserable as sin, but
of course.
The music and the melodies on that are phenomenal, seriously.
You can excuse a miserable subject matter if it's entertaining music like the Smiths. Otherwise, they wouldn't get anywhere.
I understand it's quite biographical as well, as far as Run Doors Above is concerned. I understand that a lot of it is actually quite scratches the surfaces, if you like. So
yeah.
So we're just doing a music podcast.
Yeah,
now.
I could speak for hours
Talk
about
80s.
my 3 hour playlist on Amazon Music, which is all 80s tunes.
Awesome.
Music I steered clear of when I was a kid because it just wasn't very exciting. But I can't get enough of Duran Duran and Tears for Fears now.
I've seen Duran Duran.
Have you?
Saw them in 2003 when they did. They got a lifetime.
From the O2,
they got a lifetime. They got a lifetime achievement award. It was at Wembley Arena, I think. I don't know. But it was back when they got in sort of late 2002. They got a lifetime achievement award, and they released a new album. And I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. I know the single was "Reach Out for the Sunrise," and they did a tour alongside it, and I went along, and it was good.
Mm.
And Scissor Sisters played that support band, and they were pretty entertaining as well.
They were quite cool, the Sisters.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if you can share. I don't know if you can share playlists from
Skype.
No,
from Spotify you can.
No,
share them on Deezer.
Oh, Apple, Amazon Music or Apple Music, or whatever.
It's Amazon Music. It is
Amazon Music.
No. Oh, share. Yeah, you can share it.
There's an ordinary world.
Right. I am going to.
I'm more of a Planet Earth guy.
Oh, nice.
It's
this planet Earth. I'm if you're talking favourite Duran Duran songs, I'm a Notorious kind of guy. Also the song.
I
just love that. Yeah. I just love that. I love that beat. It's just.
I'm more of a do 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 do.
Right, brace yourself.
You're gonna play some Duran down the speaker.
I'm not playing any Duran, but I have
just put my birthday,
playlist in there.
The number one single on my birthday, on the day of my birth, was The Reflex.
Oh my God, mine was We'll Meet Again Some Sunny Day, I think, by Vera Lynn.
First time it was released.
Brahms Concerto in C.
Mine was the pre-sale.
It's just called We'll Meet.
Yeah.
We'll Meet Again was the sequel, was it?
Yeah.
Rob.
I enjoyed that. It's called. I enjoyed that. Let's do that again sometime.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, let's get back into these show notes then.
All right, cool.